watching Morning at NTV.
I would love to talk on my own.
You're watching Morning at NTV.
Into our business update, we get to look at the 2023 Africa Pension Supervisors Association Conference that is coming through. Now, of course, the backbone of it is that many Ugandans were still excluded from the existing retirement benefits arrangements, with just over 3 million savers registered compared to a working population of over 20 million people. At a continental level, you do look at 600 million young, economically active informal sector workers across Africa that are excluded from formal pension and social protection arrangements and face the grim prospect of living in extreme poverty by the time they get very, very old. Now, you do have ASPA seeking to enhance pension supervision and regulation by providing a platform of collaboration, cooperation and exchange of information and ideas to better supervise, regulate as well as grow the pension sector on the continent, and more specifically for us here in Uganda. Speaking to us on this subject matter, we are joined by Mr. Martin Subuga, the CEO UBRA, to digest the magnitude of pensioners in Uganda and us who are preparing to be pensioners at some point X. Yes. So let's talk about the current pension scheme in Uganda. Who does it favor? Who doesn't it favor?
Very good question. First, I'm humbled and honored to be here. The pension structure in Uganda is designed in a way that it seems to favor the working population or those in the formal sector. It's structured in a way that there are those mandatory contributions to NSSF. There are also those contributions by your employer to a provident fund. So it means somebody has to be in some form of employment and then also forced to save, unfortunately. People are supposed to be forced to save, either through mandatory means or via your employer making a forced saving for you. So that's how it's structured. And today it has around 3 million people covered in that space. So if you compare that with our working population or labor force, the working labor force of around 18 million. So it gives a very small percentage of around 16, 17. So the idea is that over 15 million people, or 15 million working, or would be people to qualify in that space, are not covered. And that's why we think that we need to do more work. So, but by and large, it has been structured. Today, we have around 65 schemes. From 3 schemes, that's when the regulator came into place. The sector has been able to accumulate around 21.5 trillion. Again, that one is benefiting the 3 million people. Now, if you digest the numbers further, you realize that actually the people who control a significant amount of money are less than 10% of the 3 million people. So the average member in the scheme has not more than 10 million. So when you talk of inclusion, it's wide. Beyond the coverage in terms of numbers, it also goes further to be included in that space of having more. So the adequacy bit. Then you widen the scope further to look at it from, can we have more women in this space? If you unpack again the people who are in this formal space who are working, quite a big percentage, over 50%, are men. So the female are not many.
I mean, I'm the only female on the morning show. That's yeah. So
of course, the show
so I have like
50,
I walk around like about 10 guys, and I'm the only one in the morning show. Yeah.
Well, but that's a true reflection of what is happening. Yes. But when you go to the other side of the informal bit, you actually find more women there. So we think that if there is a mechanism that can unpack the expansion of coverage or reaching out to that category of population, then you'll be able to bring more women in the space.
Okay.
So there is quite a lot around it. Even the youth are not covered in the space. So when you also look at the people who are working today, of course, the numbers tend to reflect that there are more people who are now joining because of new jobs. but that does not mean that there are people who are actually the youth are covered. There are many more youth out there who are not yet covered in this space.
All right. History teaches us a lot, and from this conversation it gives me the perspective that you do have pensioners scheme being created with the reality at the time being that with the white man's kind of education, everyone would be ending up in a professional job and therefore doing professional work, and therefore under those professional organizations they would be ending up protecting their evening years, for saying. But today we do have a lot of entrepreneurship that is going on. Today we do have a lot of informal education going on. Therefore, the informal sector is growing by and large. How do we get them to be included? You talked about inclusivity. How do we then attract them to realize that they need to look forward to their evening years financially protecting themselves?
Well, thank you, and that's the big homework we do have. But we've also been able to understand a few things. The good thing you've said, despite being the structure of education of white-collar jobs and the rest, but we also see a generation that is doing something, irrespective of what it is, but at least they generate some income. So the issue is that how do we tap into those people into this space? There is no mandatory contribution, so they shouldn't be forced to save. They don't have regular income. It is seasonality, or when there is a big boom, they are not certain of that. And three, some want even quick access of that money. So yet, the side we are in when they are saving for retirement, it is long term. So money has to be locked in. So you need to find a way of managing all those things. So we've discovered any new structure or any new scheme has to have a means of flexibility, allowing them to save at their convenience. The second one, you don't need to demand for a lot of money, but by the pension you don't need a lot of money to save. It's just your consistent. So flexibility here will mean how regular you save, but also how much you want to save. But also flexibility in terms of access. But because of the design, it shouldn't be in a way that long-term savings are then allowed to be accessed in the initial stages. Then there will not be any distinction between a savings scheme and a bank where you're just working and getting money. What we've tried to do, one, we've done a study to understand that dynamic I'm talking about. Number two, we also think that we've also partnered with FSD financial sector depending Uganda, and they've come up with another study for the National Long-Term Savings Scheme, which ideally has to be unique in a way that it can cover these characteristics. So it has to be designed in a way that addresses this, but the flexibility of saving, flexibility of what you want to save, but also have it in a way that if I'm saving 1,000 as an example, it has to be designed in a way that out of the 1,000 I'm saving, can you have 10% of that or 20% allowable for me to access in the event I have an emergency.
Oh yes, yes.
So it is how you design it, such you have something you're locking in for long term. So in our work, we piloted 2 schemes, but there's one that is giving us all the notes that we are using, and that is Maritime Benefit Scheme, which is now, I think, almost 8 years. So they started with flexibility of people can join in anytime, but you also determine when to exit. So I can say I'm joining the scheme for 1 year and I'm leaving, just to build trust. But today it has evolved, and the scheme is structured in a way that you can now lock in 30%, so 70% for retirement, and 30% is allowable. So it is addressing those nitty-gritty things. But nonetheless, we think we may need to go through into a unique structure that
Yeah.
can be able to fit in this space.
Well, how does that work when you do have the 3% that you mentioned themselves not having so much money on their accounts as they get to be saving kamu making it omuganda on the account? It's not really accumulating enough to then benefit them with the 30-70 rule that you're applying in terms of long-term saving and active savings. So how are we going to change that situation?
Yes, you know the principle of saving for retirement is you don't need a lot of money, like I've said, but you need consistency, and you also need to leave that money there. That's why we are looking in that money. That was 70% in one scheme is being locked in. The idea is that if you consistently save and you leave your money there to grow, it would mean that over time you'll benefit from the compounded interest principle. We've always demonstrated this. If a person is saving 10,000 every month, that's around 120,000 a year. In 10 years, it's 1.2, 20 years, 2.4. In 30 years, it's 3.6 million. However, if you do it consistent and this money is invested at a rate of 10% per annum, after 30 years, you actually have like 30 million. So the difference between 3.6 and 30 million is the income that the money has been made for you. Because the foundation has been set, the fundamentals are there, the vehicles where to invest the money are also defined, and the protecting mechanism is in place. So you can be assured. So the idea is that start small, be consistent, let it grow. So those who have little money today, there are some dynamics within. For example, the person is employed for 1 year, there's a gap of not being employed, so he's not saving for that time. There are those who were made to join as members and they are redundant, so they are joined because of the circumstances and they've never joined again to save. So again, what is growing in your portfolio is just a little interest, but remember your base has not changed. It's very, very small.
Okay. This one is particularly focusing on the young population that is in the labor market. What is the best time, or at what time should one get onto a pension scheme?
Well, but first and foremost, let me even clarify, we don't have pension schemes in this country. We have provident funds. I think the pension scheme we have is the public service pension scheme. But at what time? Well, as early as possible. As early as possible, I mean, I think I've already demonstrated you, the longer you save, the better. So just imagine you are 20 years today and want to retire at 50. So do you need to wait when you begin your job?
Oh, you know I asked that because many people's version of retirement is when your head is all gray, which could be at 70 or 80. So that's their mind thinking, no, it's okay, I'll start saving at 45, 50 for that time.
It will not help you when you start late, because you will actually be just putting money aside but not investing for long term. So you lose out on the opportunity. So, and even then you even need more money, because as you move towards your retirement, it means you need more money to invest to allow you to give you that modest return and consistent cash flow. So in principle is as early as possible. I always tell university students, the ones we interact with, how if you save that 1,000 you spend on data on a weekly basis, just 1,000 per week, or if you can make it 5,000 a month, you can see how it can make a difference in your life.
Okay.
By the time you get a job, or by the time you start work, or by the time you are forced now to save, you'd have created a foundation for yourself.
In my head, I do have the argument of that university student, should they be having that conversation with you? But listen to the words of the wise is how I would close it. Now, we do have UBRA. It's going to be hosting an annual conference of African Pension Supervisors Association. What is the agenda of this conference?
Yes, first and foremost, it is a privilege to Uganda to host the African Pension Supervisors Association. It's the fourth time it's being held in different countries since its establishment. We are going to learn from very many countries. I think the membership is around 15, but those who have already confirmed are 35 regulatory bodies from different partners, not partner states, African regulatory bodies. And we are going to learn from each other. And this time around, we are focusing on just one thing. We've all set the foundation for supervision and regulation. We've set the roles and the rules of the game, it is, etc. But we have a common problem, like you said in your introduction. Coverage is poor. The number of our population that is going to benefit from the good things that have been established is still small. So we all have a common problem. One, to learn from each other. Two, there are those who have made a few attempts to solve this problem. One, to see what has worked, what has not worked. Three, we also want to, there are a number of people who are joining us from different expertise. So we are going to look at one, matters of expanding coverage, matters of pension inclusion in Africa, as the theme is. Number two, we are going to look at ESG matters, because we are now looking at going into that space of investing green, what is necessary. And number three, we are also dealing with the public service pension reform. We are doing a lot, but we've not yet moved an inch. But there are other countries who have gone through challenges like ours and have moved. So what have they done? So we need to understand from them. And then, of course, there's a lot of literature around that is going to be launched and shared. So by and large, more of collaboration, sharing experiences, and also get out of that with solutions to our problems.
Okay. All right. Let's look at the recommended replacement ratio being at 70% of one's pre-retirement income. Is that achievable in Uganda? If it's not achievable, then what are the key barriers?
First, replacement is a concept. The issue of replacement rate is trying to look at the cash flow you are going to get in retirement that mirrors the cash flow you are getting while working in active life. So they try to relate the two. One is the cash flow, another one, say, a salary you've been earning, and they say you need around 70% of your income today to sustain. But the question is there any cash flow in retirement that you are looking at on a monthly basis? The structure you have in this market? No. Because we've designed the structure to be of a provident fund. When you retire, you are given your money and then you go. Now you determine how you're going to invest it, and in many cases you lose the money. So unfortunately, you don't have the cash flow. But yes, the main consideration is what you put in. So it has to go back to the design. Can we now rethink the structure of our pension system in this country? Probably. Can it be structured in a way that, other than giving you a lump sum, it can be spread over time? Then we can be able to relate the replacement rates. But nonetheless, we can also look at it from a perspective to have an amount that can be translated into a cash flow that mirrors your current income today. It means you must have started a bit early, you must have been consistent, and the money must have given value for you. But the other fundamental is that if you saved little money, 70% is a percentage, not a nominal amount. So if your amounts, if you're earning 1,500,000 or 200,000, and you do it consistently again, you will still get that cash flow, but would it be enough?
Okay.
Yeah, that's why you go into the details in the discussion. How if you enhanced your saving for retirement such that when that new initiative comes into place, you have already accumulated a sizable amount that can be translated into a pensionable. There are better products in this market now that you can think of. Okay.
Well, Mr. Nsugwa, our time is fast spent, but what's your call to action, especially to Uganda's labor market? It's large, it's promising, but we also must protect our futures at the end of the day.
First, I want to congratulate Ugandans for heeding to our call. We see a conversion rate. People are beginning to appreciate the need for saving for retirement and the accumulation of money, and then be able to translate it into an income for retirement. However, you need to be very careful where you save for your retirement. Please look for a licensed entity. And if you've got your money for retirement being paid lump sum, please don't think you are an expert. There are so many licensed experts around in this market. Reach out to them. I know they are licensed investment advisors with licensed fund managers in this market. Don't pretend to be an expert. You lose your money. And finally, from our side as a regulator, can only give you assurance that however much you save or however long you save your money, whether it's 10, 30, or how many years, your money will be protected and safe. The framework is very strong. We've structured it in a way that it can give you the long-term future that we all aspire for.
All right, and that is Mr. Martin Subuga, the CEO of UBRA, and you can reach out to their social media platforms for more information. But the best day to protect yourself and your future is yesterday. The next best day to do so is today. So heed to this conversation, let it linger in your mind a little longer, and make the informed decision. You have been given the knowledge. Also, from an action point of view, moving forward, for the National Drug Authority, in case you experience any side effects, please report to the National Drug Authority. Now, you can do it by dialing *284 *99#, and then you will be able to get prompts that will lead you to you making your comment and query. Or you can also go into their WhatsApp number, which is 074-000-2070. So that is 074-000-2070. Or you can even look them up on the social media platforms and be able to engage with them as far as the drugs that you are using. If you feel something is off about those drugs, they are here and ready to help you. Those have been our conversations for Wednesday's edition of Morning at 10 TV. On behalf of Chris Igeni and myself, Priscilla Regina Naloga, have yourselves a good day.